Ma'am, I need you to calm down, okay?
I've spent many years trying to get that vision out of my mind.
On the night of March 12, 1997, Olga Parlante was attacked and murdered in her Hollywood, Florida apartment.
I know for a fact that she was screaming out my name. I know she was screaming for me to help her.
When it first started, we thought it would be an easy case to solve. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Fred was very angry. He wanted to find out who did this to his mother, because he would take care of that person.
To think that someone else in their family murdered your own mother, I just wanted revenge.
To think that I would do something to my grandmother hurts more than anything.
She basically doesn't have an airtight alibi as to where she was that night.
She knows more than she said.
That polygraph showed that she was lying.
I was afraid for my life because of Freddie.
He should have never hit her, but he did.
She has something to do with it? Boiled, rotten, miserable brat.
Go yourself, Freddie. That's what I want to say. Family is everything. I don't want to remember that day. I remember it being just the worst day of my life. I just thought maybe she was sleeping. So I went to her house. Priority for me that morning was food, seeing if my grandmother wanted something to eat. She got sick when I was very young. She had a major stroke when I was 14. There were times that I did worry about her living alone. I only lived a block away, so I was right there all the time. I didn't have to knock on my grandmother's door. Her home was always my home, so I walked right in. And when I walked in, I seen her. She was laying on the floor in the dining room. I touched her stomach, and she was cold. And I remember calling out her name, Grandma, Grandma. And I called 911.
Would you want to hear a part of the 911 call?
I don't want to remember that day.
Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Hello? Ma'am, I need you to calm down, okay? Ma'am, what is your first name? Angelina, is there something in your mouth?
There was like bugs or gnats or I don't know what it was. Something came out of her mouth.
Okay, you don't have to do anything, all right? Take it easy.
I've spent many years trying to get that vision out of my mind. I would have nightmares. I tried so hard just to forget what I saw when I walked in that morning. And I thought I've done a pretty good job of just blocking out that memory of her just laying there. I don't want to have that memory anymore. I don't want to remember her like that.
My sergeant took the call. He came over to me, he says, "Hey, Frank, you're up." It's my turn. So he says, "I think we got a homicide down in the South End, in the unincorporated Fort Lauderdale area." He says, "I already notified crime scene, so they'll meet you there." We noticed her laying there on the floor. We did a walkthrough of the scene. This is Olga's front door, the original door. There's the white chair that had blood on the handle right here. What we know is that for a fact that there was no pry marks and there was no forced entry. We looked at the windows too, none of the windows have been forced open. At one point, looks like she tried to make it out of the apartment. She was bleeding because obviously she had been struck a few times, and there's blood on the bottom of the door. So we know that she's down on her knees at that point. She tried to resist and only made it to the door, to the edge of the door, and then was dragged back inside and killed. We noticed her purse emptied onto the floor, and she's got a piece of, it looks like a blouse wrapped around her neck. The medical examiner's office is right down the street. He came over and he examined her. And he felt that she had been strangled. He gave us an estimate. He says, this probably happened, late last night. She's already in full rigor. One thing we noticed right away was a void area where the TV had been at. And the cable was loose, the antenna was loose right there on the floor. So at that point, we're starting to see this as a burglary that went bad, or a robbery that went bad. The ransacking in the bedroom was very disorganized. Drawers pulled out, thrown all over the place. There was some ransacking in the living room and in the kitchen area, but it wasn't as disheveled as the other one. It almost indicated that you had two different profiles there. One person who was out of control in the bedroom, while someone who was not as out of control in the other parts of the apartment. Our crime scene unit were able to lift a lot of fingerprints and palm prints that were obtained from items within Olga's purse. We're talking about various prints and in crucial places. Olga Parlante was partially handicapped. She was in her 70s. She would not hurt a soul, and whoever did this to her took advantage of her and killed her. We need to find out who this person is. We need to get this person. The Olga Parlante case, when it first started, we didn't have any suspects. But we thought it would be an easy case to solve. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It didn't turn out that way.
It never crossed my mind that this day would change my whole life. It never crossed my mind like that, not in the way that it did. It tore the family up. My grandmother was the link that kept us together. And it all tumbled. When you lose somebody so tragic and you think, why would somebody want to hurt? She was paralyzed. Why would somebody want to hurt a defenseless woman? She was 72. Just why?
It was on March 13th, about 9:30 a.m. I was just leaving the tanning salon, and I got a phone call from Shirley, my wife. And she says, "Freddie, I want you to come home." Bing, light went off. And I said, "My mother?" She says, "Freddie, please come home." She was crying in the background. I said, "All right." I walked in the house, and I says, "Did she die?" She says, "Sit down." I sat down, and I said, "You knock it off. What's going on?" She says, "Freddie, your mother was murdered. They found her this morning in her apartment." Put my fist through the wall, and I was on the flight, the next flight out to Florida.
Fred was very angry. He wanted to find out who did this to his mother. He basically wanted to take care of business himself. He wanted to find out who it was because he would take care of that person.
We talked, tried to find out, what's going on, and can you tell me if you have any leads or stuff like that? He says, "Well, it's an investigation, ongoing investigation. I really can't talk about it." I said, "But I'm the oldest son. You gotta be able to tell me something." I wanted to get into the apartment. I seen the rug cut up, my mother's house of shambles, fingerprints taken, black from head to foot. I flipped. I didn't care about life. I didn't care about nobody. I was cold. I didn't care. I lost all feelings towards people. And I don't care what anybody thinks about it. That's my mother. That was my God, my Virgin Mary. It took some son of a bitch to kill her.
We started thinking about maintenance people. I checked on the maintenance record of Olga's apartment, and they had a couple of times went in there. I think it was within the last month or so. They were in and out of the apartment all the time. We wound up getting their fingerprints, their DNA, and we submitted those. Nothing. We have fingerprints and palm prints in the bedroom where we know the suspect ransacked that place. Some of them were matched to family members. Those were just eliminated. We cannot match those to anyone. They compared to all the prints and nothing. This suspect's print's got to be in there. I was frustrated. Palm prints, the system wouldn't take those. All we could do with the palm prints was do a one-on-one comparison. I got a hold of the district detective that handles burglaries for that area. He gave me the names of all the locals that he knew that committed burglaries. So we looked at all of those. When I submitted a name to them as a suspect, they would take that person's prints and then compare them on a one-on-one with the palm prints. So every name that I submitted, they compared all the palm prints. And it takes time. It's frustrating. Unfortunately, that's our strongest piece of evidence at this point. The other two detectives that were with me, they started doing the area canvassing and speaking to some of these people. They're knocking on doors to see if anybody heard anything. People were kind of shocked. They were kind of scared. They were kind of shocked about the murder because that rarely happens. But nothing unusual. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything strange. I believe that Olga, she did scream, which is the reason they put the rag in her mouth. And what bothered me was that none of the neighbors heard anything. You can hear through these walls.
There's no way in hell somebody's gonna tell me that they didn't hear something, especially the next door neighbor. It's impossible.
Is it that because they did hear something, they just don't want to get involved? That could be. That's a possibility. One of our uniformed deputies, Emerald Palms, hired him to do security at night in uniform with his patrol unit. So he was there that night. He says, I had a problem at this building at around 8 o'clock at night. I got called by a taxi cab driver whose fare, they didn't want to pay the fare. So he said, whoa, where did this come from? It sounds good. I got excited. Obviously, we want to talk to this person. One of the family members tells us, well, you know, Olga was complaining about a guy who had just moved in upstairs from her. He's been by my apartment a couple of times and he looks in when he comes by because I have my door open. So if anything happens to me, you gotta look at this guy who moved upstairs from me.
A cousin of mine reported and mentioned my grandmother's words were if she was ever found strangled, that she wanted this guy looked into. I've heard that if she was ever found dead, but I've never actually put it this way where she was found strangled.
Pretty eerie, isn't it?
Extremely. Because she was strangled.
We were looking at the gentleman that lives upstairs on the second floor. Well, coincidentally, this guy turns out to be the same guy that came home drunk in the cab, who Olga had said, if I'm strangled, you gotta look at this guy. Make sure they look at this guy. So she pointed the finger at this guy. He lived with his mother and his sister. They told us, yeah, he was drunk that night. We don't know if he went back out or not, but he sleeps in the living room. We looked in the apartment, no television set in the apartment that we were looking for. We had brought him in, and he was very cooperative with us. We find out that he had an alibi for that night. But Olga was complaining, if anything ever happens to me, you gotta look at that guy. So we did his fingerprints, and that turned out negative. But at that point, we did not completely discount them because he might have somebody else, friends that he might have told about her apartment. There was always the possibility that there could have been more than one person there at the apartment. I could not discount that. Freddie asked me about the guy upstairs. And I told him, look, I already spoke with him. There's nothing in there that indicates that he's involved. Freddie didn't want to take no for an answer on anything. He felt everybody was a suspect on this. And no matter what I did, he still felt that this person was somehow involved. My concern with Fred was that he would take the law into his own hands. He would go out there, beat somebody to pulp trying to get information.
A very emotional time. We're trying to help the police, find something, and anybody that, that she knew, it could be involved, because the police had nothing. Everybody was a suspect. Who would do this? The 71-year-old woman was partially paralyzed. How could anybody do that? It's evil at its worst. It's got to be somebody evil. And the rumors are just flying.
Angie and her boyfriend, my sister Patty, didn't like him at all. She said he was a cockroach. In plain language, those are her words, a cockroach. Nick Nyhoff was a complete idiot. And her boyfriend's brother, I believe he might have even been involved with him.
Fred was extremely frustrated that this was all going on, and here we're searching. So that's where that came about, his brothers, Nick's brothers.
On speaking to family members and so on, some of them told us that Olga would sell part of her Valiums that she would get monthly to basically local people. They were telling me that some of the Nyhoffs bought Valiums from her. So they started interjecting their own theories as to what they believe might have happened.
Angie would have known there was no money, not from her. The only thing I could have said was those Valiums. Maybe he wanted those Valiums to sell them or whatever, I don't know.
Fred Parlante was the first one that put us in touch with the Nyhoffs, suggesting that they might be involved in this. He says, you cannot trust them. They've had dealings with the police before. I think they're somehow involved in this. You got to look into them.
To think that someone else in their family murdered your own mother. I didn't want to hear Angie might have been involved.
We looked into Nick first and find out he works at a car auction across the street, maybe less than a mile from the scene.
was definitely in shock. I felt betrayed. I felt unsafe. It felt weird.
I was kind of shocked. To me, that's just as bad as, I don't know, sticking a knife in you. They're reaching for I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but I guess that's their strategy in the whole thing.
She loved Nick. I think it's because they both had that outgoing, no-filter personality.
Anytime we seen each other, it was smile right away. As soon as we eye contact, it was big smiles because we flirt back and forth because she loved life. I'm sorry, I was raised by a single mother, and not in a million years would I think any one of my brothers nor myself would touch a woman, an elderly woman.
There was a lot of finger pointing going around, a lot of it. I felt like they were desperate to pin it on somebody at the beginning.
It was just, it's too phenomenal to think of your own relative to do something like that to another relative. No way.
She was my mom, she was my dad, she was my grandma, and she was my grandpa. She was all in one.
No way that she would let anything happen to her, especially something like that happen to her grandmother. Do anything to her grandmother. She wouldn't have hurt her grandmother. But she may know somebody who did.
Angie's boyfriends at the time, and said it was either him or his brother that killed my mother. And he's the type of person that would have did that. I caught Angie when I went over to my mother's apartment. I sat there. I used to go there a couple of times when I was there, and I used to sit there, cry, put the flowers on the door. I caught Angie walking towards the apartment. And I grabbed Angie. I says, I gotta ask you something. I says, and this is very serious, Angie. And I asked her, Angie, Uncle Rico and I sat down and we talked. We promise you, with all our heart, we'll buy you a home, we'll set you up to make sure you no problems at all, and nobody will ever touch you. Do you know what happened? Do you know if your boyfriend or his brother was involved in his murder? She's not saying both. She has not said one word. I mean, it was cold, blank eyes.
Well, hell, she just found her mother dead. What's she supposed to look like? Was she supposed to be happy and cheery?
I didn't know who killed my grandmother. I didn't kill her, and I had nothing to do with it. So I don't care how much you offered me. It wasn't gonna change anything. So my blank face was anger, disappointment, hurt. It was everything in one.
And I looked at Angie, I'm talking to you. Please tell me, do you know anything about this? It was like talking to an ice cube. She was just cold looking at me, never said a word, didn't say yes, didn't say no, nothing. I wanted to be nice to her, to have her hopefully say, I think my boyfriend's brother or something like that might have been involved. Out of the wild blue yonder, her boyfriend shows up. She walks away quick. And he says, "What's going on?" And I looked at him, I says, "Nothing. Just talking to Angie." Now, whether she said anything to him, I don't know, whatever it was. But I turned cold from that day on from Angie, and especially her boyfriend. I was furious. Couldn't do nothing. What can I do? Can't prove it. I just wanted revenge. At the funeral home, I seen a trickle of blood in her hair. And I asked the funeral home to comb her hair and clean it up, which they did. I was in the fog.
I slipped a picture underneath her pillow of the girls. She loved my girls so much. And I hope it stayed, but I feel like it didn't stay. I feel like Freddie would have taken it out.
Angie's boyfriend, Nick, had an alibi as to where he was that night. He said that he was home that night, Thursday night, watching a movie. He lives with his mother and Angie and the kids. His mother was there with him, and she confirmed it. She told us, yeah, he was here. His brother was at Hollywood Hospital with his wife. They were taking their sick little boy there who was running a fever. And he remembers calling his mother from the hospital.
Upon interviewing his wife, she provided the same story. The hospital records also confirmed their story. So that right there should tell the family that he had nothing to do with it. But yet they continued to blame him. I feel like so much finger pointing went around that it also interfered with their investigation at the same time. It was wasting a lot of their time. I felt like if the family would have just let them do their job, maybe things would have went a little differently.
Based on the investigation, I know that Olga, she loved to go to the night owls. The session was a night session, started around 11 o'clock at night, bingo. Based on what we saw in the apartment, she's already dressed to go. We know that she probably was going to call the cab service, but she never did. There was no calls to the cab service that we know of. She's killed between 10 and 10:30, right around that time. So there were questions about Angie as to what she did that night. Angie said that she went to the store twice. First time she went, she came back and she forgot something, and she returned again a second time. She had gone to one of the convenience stores there, but they didn't have video, so we couldn't verify whether she had actually gone in there and they didn't remember her. The clerk did not remember. She could have gone over to Olga's, or she could have met with someone, the person that actually went over to Olga's. She basically doesn't have an airtight alibi as to where she was that night.
I was taking care of my sick child and my sick husband, my sick boyfriend at the time. It was like I had done something wrong. That night, I left twice. The first time, I left to get Gatorade. And the second time, I left to get soup.
It was just unfortunate that she left twice the night her grandmother was murdered. And what does that mean? Does that mean she had involvement in something that heinous because she had to go to the store?
We cannot exclude her not being involved in this. So I scheduled her for a polygraph.
I remember one day him calling me up saying, "Oh, we just wanted to get some more information from you. Can you come into the office so we can talk some more?" And that's the day that changed. It changed me.
Polygraphs aren't admitted at court. I really don't believe in polygraphs. You use the polygraph as a tool for the interrogation.
I was afraid of him. I was young. I was scared. But of course, I agreed.
Why did you agree?
Because I had nothing to hide. Regarding your grandmother being murdered, do you intend to answer all my questions truthfully? Yes. On 3/12/97, other than suspecting, do you know for sure who killed your grandmother? No. On 3/12/97, did you kill your grandmother? No. On 3/12/97, did you help in any way kill your grandmother? No. After conducting the polygraph examination, it's the opinion of the examiner that the results were rendered inconclusive.
That means that she couldn't tell us whether she was being truthful with us or if she was lying to us. It's just inconclusive. We get that a lot on polygraphs.
Not unusual.
Right. But obviously, I proceeded to do the interrogation on her, and I didn't tell her that it was inconclusive. I just basically told her that she had flunked. So that's going to be my approach to her, that she is lying. You flunk the polygraph and see what her response is, even if she was being truthful with me at that point. Sometimes it works. Sometimes they believe you and say, okay, I lied. I mean, it's just a tool that we use. It was common.
I know I didn't fail that test, but I was scared. I was scared that they were going to try and pin something on me that I didn't do. I was scared.
We did lean pretty hard on Angelina, but we had our reasons. It was our job to try and figure out what happened. She's got to realize that we were just trying to solve her grandmother's case.
Being interrogated, them telling you that you killed your grandmother. Oh, we know it was an accident. We know it was an accident. Telling me that, just tell us what happened. And I was praying. I was praying so hard. And they said I would never see my kids again. That's when I knew that they thought I had something to do with it.
And she swore, I mean, very strong denials that she had nothing to do with this and she didn't know anything. I felt that she was being truthful with me at that point, but I still had not completely eliminated her because maybe she is that good and she's just, I just can't get to her.
I didn't know at the time. I was young. I didn't know that I could just get up and leave whenever I wanted to. So I stayed and I endured.
When we were doing the area canvassing, one of the neighbors told us that they had seen a small car turning into the street. I didn't think that was Angie's car, to be honest with you. I wanted to use that as a bait. So I told her, hey, your car was seen going over to Olga's that night. What's going on?
He was so persistent about saying that my car was there. And I know I didn't drive my car there that night. So somebody must have stole it. If you see my car there, then somebody took my car.
Her answer did not make any sense. Her answer kind of suggested that it was seen there that night. She doesn't deny that her car was seen there, which is kind of unusual. So that's kind of stuck in my mind. It made it suspicious. I couldn't say that she was completely cleared. I had to keep that in the back of my mind that there is always a possibility that she was involved in this.
She flunked. I say flunked because I'm lying. Lying, deceitful. I was suspicious. And Frank Ilaraza turned around and says, well, we have a little problem with, checking up on Angie, and we're checking this story, checking that story.
I told Fred that there was a small car scene coming into the complex, but we couldn't establish the time or what type of car or who was driving it. I remember telling him, all we know is that it turned onto 53rd Court. But Fred was convinced that that was her car that night.
They knew it was Angie's car. There was no doubt about that. Angie's car was seen at my mother's home the night of the murder.
I just think he should have kept everything to himself. To give that information to somebody that's not in the right state of mind, and Freddie, he's psycho as hell. Just speaking to him, you could tell he's not, that he's a loose cannon. Why would you ever give someone like that information thinking that somebody's a suspect?
Well, why would Angie's car be at the murder scene? Why are you at my mother's? My thoughts were going more and more that she knew something about it.
She came home distraught, crying, very, very distraught. And I just comforted her and told her, don't worry about it, because you know you didn't do it.
It's kind of one of those memories that you don't want to remember that either. You want to put that behind you. It's not something I share. It's not something I tell people. Hey, I was interrogated.
Spoiled, rotten, miserable brat. She knows more than she said. She had something to do with it. I hated her guts.
When Frank can't come up with something, the wheels start spinning. It was guesswork. Could she have stopped there? Not my mother's house? I was getting suspicious. Maybe she knows something.
The biggest thing is, why was that car parked there? Why was her car there?
The family just they quit talking to me. To think that I would do something to my grandma hurts more than anything, especially the family in Florida, because they knew me. They knew me better than anybody. They knew me way better than Freddie knew me. But he was good at convincing people and brainwashing people.
It was something that you don't just let go. It was constant.
Her whole family disowned her. I didn't talk to her neither.
Auntie Patty definitely thought that my car was there and said that, wouldn't it be something if it was your face that your grandmother saw before she was killed?
I don't know if I've ever seen this picture, but it's a good picture. It's my grandma, my Auntie Patty, and Uncle Pete. Grandma looks happy. I feel bad for Auntie Patty. She died thinking that I had something to do with it. I would never hurt my grandmother. She was the most important person in my life. We would have candlelight vigils in front of my grandmother's apartment, and I would go. Even though Freddie said don't come, I would go because I had every right to be there. She was my mother, too. So, there was one day that I went to my aunt's house, and Freddie had come walking out of the house, and he immediately started attacking me in my car, and just hitting me and just hitting me in my car, just punching at me like I was a man. And he eventually just drove. I didn't even care if I hit him. I just drove off just to get away from him. I was afraid. I was afraid for my life because of Freddie.
Never touched her. Just screaming at her, that was it. Never touched her.
I don't know all the details, but he should have never hit her, first of all. What he did.
I called the cops, and he went to jail for hitting me. Because it's not okay. I showed up for the first hearing, and when I walked in and I seen him sitting in the inmate booth, he looked just like my grandmother. So I walked away.
All he's doing is making it worse for us. So I was trying to keep him calm. And I told him, look, Fred, I'll never give up on your case, no matter how long it takes.
On the night of March 12, 1997, Olga Parlante was attacked and murdered in her Hollywood, Florida apartment. Her family's been aiding Broward County police in their search for her killer. But after 5 months, the only leads detectives have found have come to dead ends.
We're still actively working the case. We're still looking for people out there who might have seen something.
I asked the public, please, this man could end up killing your mother or your daughter, your sister. Please help us put him away.
Parlante vows he'll never stop searching for his mother's killer.
He says, give us time, give us time, give us time. I got so sick and tired of, we're still investigating this, We're investigating that guy. We're investigating Angie. We're investigating, there was a lot of investigation, but no solid leads, and it was getting colder and colder and colder, and I was afraid I was going to lose him.
I put together a package, police reports, lab reports, photographs of the scene. Got a hold of a behavioral science unit at Quantico, the FBI. I sent that up to them to get an opinion from them as to, whether we were going in the right direction or not. They basically told us that we were probably looking for somebody who was a local burglar, who was needed the money for drugs. Quantico's findings really didn't help.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist. They don't have nothing. We go on, do what we're doing, and hopefully something's gonna happen in the future. Pray something will happen. Not Freddie, though. Freddie pursued it.
Fred Parlante decided to come up with a reward. I think it was like $15,000. So we had flyers posted everywhere for, offering reward for any type of information. We had it in the media.
Fred Parlante is offering a reward to anyone who helps him find his mother's killer.
This is for the information leading to the arrest and conviction of my mother's murderer, and also for the person that turns around and shows the police department the evidence.
Angie really never got off the radar. As I'm investigating the case, I start learning that she had been fired from her job the week before Olga's murder. She called back her boss, and the boss gave her job back and says, but you be here, promptly at 9 o'clock Thursday morning. Obviously, sketchy behavior going on. So we took another crack at her and talking to her again, brought her in, and basically gave her another polygraph, and again, accused her and all that, and that polygraph showed that she was lying.
Frank had reached out to me. He wanted me to come in for an interview.
Angelina's first polygraph was inconclusive, and we felt that she might know more than she's telling us, so we took another crack at her. So the second polygraph that we gave Angelina was on March 8th, 1999.
Do you intend to answer to all my questions truthfully? Yes.
On March 12, 1997, do you know for sure who killed your grandmother? She said no.
On 3/12/97, did you kill your grandmother? Answer, no.
Did you kill your grandmother? No.
On March 12, 1997, did you help in any way to kill your grandmother? Again, the answer was no. So after conducting the polygraph examination, it was the opinion of the examiner that there were significant reactions indicative of deception on her part to the pertinent questions. That polygraph showed that she was lying.
Deception.
Deception to the pertinent questions. Huh. Deception.
was showing emotional reactions to the questions. She might know more than she's telling us. But polygraphs are not admissible in court, so there's nothing you can do as far as using it as probable cause.
That just goes to show you that they're crock of I mean, if they can't use them in court, how can they use them, period? A machine can't tell you if you're lying or telling the truth.
I gave her the answers of the polygraph. Yeah, they're saying that you're lying. They're saying that you know something about this. And she again denied it and denied it.
They did say, why, if you were running late, why did you go to your grandmother's?
I questioned her over and over again. Her answer was, I didn't care if I got my job back or not. She says, I love my grandmother. I just wanted to see if she could check on her.
They didn't know that I wasn't even happy at that job. So I really didn't care that I was running late for that job. Telemarketing jobs were a dime a dozen.
Didn't sound right. There was conflict in my mind as far as whether Angie was innocent of this, completely innocent of this. There was always the possibility that maybe she does know something about this. There was always that possibility. The fact that we had been not getting anywhere on this case, a case that should have been solved.
I'm telling you right now, and I don't care if it's on TV, she's a degenerate liar, and she'll scam anybody. She's good. She is the best. I've seen her fool a whole police department, and I know that without a doubt. I never touched that woman. She was good. She's a degenerate liar, and she'll scam anybody. She's good.
I'm a degenerate liar. I'm not a liar. I'm genuinely a good person. Go yourself, Freddie. That's what I want to say. I don't hate anybody, but I hate Freddie. And I know hate is a harsh word, but I really do hate Freddie. And I'm sorry, Grandma, but I do hate him.
There's too many things that just don't jive. Lies, deceitful, lie detector tests, kept my mind towards her.
I kept on checking pawn shops. Sometimes we would get a list of TVs that were porn and stuff like that, and the serial numbers would be very close to the one that we knew. Nothing. There were other cases that were happening at about the same time. There was a grandmother that was killed down in Miami during a home invasion. And when I saw that in the paper, I said, oh, sounds interesting. It's an elderly lady. So I went down there and met with the detectives, but she was shot. So it was kind of different. It was different circumstances. They had already had the suspects in that case and didn't match up with my case. So we would wind up going over it again. But I know me, and I know I've always kept that. I knew that sooner or later we would solve that case.
I went to psychics. Private investigator had cost me $3,000, and that came to nothing. I've written hundreds of senators, congressmen, governors, president, of the United States. I mean, I wrote everybody in the world to get help. And it just came to a block.
Hello, that last week I missed the Parlante? Yes, it is. I think I have some information for you. Oh, yes, sir. I had the police department call me. I don't want any dealings with them. Want to give me this information? I gotta disappear.
We wound up getting a phone call from a person who supposedly knew who had killed Olga. He says that he wants $500 up front from the $15,000 reward that was being offered.
Want to give me this information? I gotta disappear. I know where TV that you're looking for is. Okay. All right. Can you tell me that, sir? Well, what is this information worth to you? Well, you know, if it's good information and the TV set is found, you'll definitely be rewarded. Great.
I got excited because it sounded legit.
I personally will meet you, or I personally will make sure you get the money myself. No police department or anything involved. All right.
He made the statement that if I hear one click on this phone, and I know that the police department are listening in, I'm hanging up, and you'll never know. He heard the click. He says, you got the police department involved. Click, and hung up the phone. Never heard a thing from it.
It was kind of disheartening. You know, you're expecting to get something, but you don't. Back in my mind, I says, "Man, will we ever solve this?"
Over the years, throughout time, the faith slowly diminished that they would find the person that did it. And the family would still think that I had something to do with it. 15 long years of not knowing. My family, they betrayed me. I had trust for nobody. I was lost. I was very lost.
Angie had bad anxiety, bad panic attacks. I mean, her happiness was taken, her joy. Man, that's hard to watch. She was so happy when we met and outgoing and loved life. And I don't wish that on nobody. I mean, nobody.
This picture I've seen so many times, in good and bad ways. I've seen this picture on Crime Stoppers as well. This is the picture that they used when they put out the flyer to find the person that killed her. Do you mind? I don't actually have this picture, I just have a copy of it.
I was offered a position over in the career criminal unit. I said, well, can I take a couple cases with me that I've been working on? And Parlante was one of them. He said, yeah, no problem. So I went over there. I was in charge of dealing with the career criminals and going through the career offenders. I'm looking through all the files, and I see one guy that had been arrested for murder a few blocks from Olga's neighborhood. But it was a taxi cab driver that had been robbed and killed. So I says, interesting. Let me submit his name. I hadn't submitted his name before. Let me submit his name to be checked against the latents. She calls me back and says, I got a hit on your palm print. And she tells me I still get goosebumps right now, just thinking about that. I says, oh my God. So she says, it's the guy who's currently in prison, gives me his name, Benny Hall. When the murder occurred, he was not in prison, he was out. That sounds good. And then she tells me, I've matched him to almost 6 different prints. Some of the stuff in her purse that had been emptied onto the floor comes back to him. One of the dresser drawers that had been pulled out, but on the handle, his fingerprints is on the handle. On the wall next to a dresser, his palm print. And I find out that he's been in and out of the system, doing burglaries left and right, had attacked a senior citizen at one point. The gentleman was going into his apartment, and Benny Hall confronted him and just punched him and knocked him out cold. Then he went in and took his wallet and basically ransacked the apartment. So he fit the profile. I says, this has got to be our guy. It was a very good day. We went in there, not knowing if he was even going to talk to us or not. There's case law stating that I don't have to advise him of his rights because technically, the prison is his home. So at that point, all I have to do is tell him, you don't have to talk to us, you can leave anytime you want to. So I made that clear at the beginning. He could have just gotten up and walked out of the room, and that would have been the end of it, and not spoken to us. But he was curious. He wanted to know what I knew.
What kind of case is this?
This is a Broward case.
What kind?
It's a burglary. Have you ever been to Broward County?
I ain't never been to Broward.
Judging by his record and his background and everything else, I wasn't expecting a confession from him. So do just the opposite. Have him deny that he ever been in the apartment. Her name is Olga. What's her name? You don't know her, never seen her, anything like that? Okay. Is there any reason why your prints would be inside of her apartment? You said you've never been there.
No.
So, is there any reason why your prints would be in your apartment, though? That you can think of? We found your prints inside of her apartment. She was killed during a burglary, and your prints were inside the apartment.
I don't know what y'all talking about.
I think you just went in there to do a burglary, and she either panicked, she started screaming, and you tried to keep her quiet.
Mr. Hall, relax your back.
I'm ready to get up out of here. I don't want to be in here. I know this.
Well, no, I told you.
But the chance to come see you, I know you stuffing up.
Right, so this is something's up.
I was happy with that, because I can prove that he was there. I can prove that he touched the items that the killer touched, especially her purse. That's just as good as him admitting that he killed her. We were positive this was our guy. Fingerprints don't lie.
In 1997, 71-year-old Olga Parlante was robbed and brutally murdered.
Homicides stay with you forever, especially the unsolved ones. It's a certain dedication that you have towards these cases that you want to see them solved.
Now, 15 years later, fingerprints found at the crime scene have led detectives to career criminal Benny Hall.
We knew we had the right guy. I contacted Freddie. That was my first call.
And I says, do I know him? And he says, no, I don't believe so. He's incarcerated at the present time. I kind of put the match under their rear end, more or less. I got him off their bump.
I remember that day. I believe it was my Auntie Maureen who called, or she sent me a message, or somebody. It was a picture. It was a picture of Benny Hall. And that was a happy day. That was a very, very happy day.
When you first saw a picture of Benny Hall, what went through your mind?
I was happy, believe it or not, that they got somebody. Mad as hell at the guy. I was just so happy that there's a break in this case here. There's something here. I mean, I'm showing everybody that I know, they got him, they got him, they got somebody. I'm flashing the picture to everybody I know.
Benny Hall. It's a shame. It really is. I feel a sense of pride knowing that, I was able to bring the case to a close. That was very satisfying, actually. As far as what happened to Olga that night, she was obviously surprised at her apartment by Benny Hall, who went there to do a burglary, but she panicked, started probably screaming and tried to make a dash for it, and he tried to stop her and wound up killing her. Benny Hall had to find out about Olga's apartment from somebody. He just didn't show up there out of nowhere.
What is he doing there? How did he pick my mother out?
In Fred's mind, still goes back to either the Nyhoffs or Angie.
You don't know. Who knows?
So I checked Angie as far as having connections with Benny Hall or Benny Hall's relatives. I checked all their phone records. I wound up subpoenaing phone records of Benny Hall, and there are no numbers whatsoever connecting any of those people. Nothing came out of there. No indications whatsoever that either Angie or Nick, none of those, the Nyhoffs, had any connections with Benny Hall. That link is not there.
I was just so happy at that point. I don't believe Angie had anything to do with it. And this poor girl has taken the heat for something she didn't do, didn't know anything about. When I first seen him, I seen the face of evil. I believe this. I see his face. His face melted. It was drooping. And I'm only seeing one eye now. And what I'm seeing is a freaking demon. I'm seeing something really ugly. And it scared the crap out of me. I seen a demon in this guy who killed my mother.
first name? Angelina, is there something in your mouth?
The 911 tapes, and they're playing them, and she broke down and crying her little eyes out there. And it was more like she having to relive this.
It felt like a lifetime in there.
Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Hello? Ma'am, I need you to calm down, okay?
I hear nothing but screams. I'd be bawling my eyes out. I don't know whether I could talk. I'd be flabbergasted. I'd be going nuts. I mean, to me, I don't hear tears. She is good. Believe me, she's good. I've seen it in firsthand. She's good.
That was real. She'd have to be a darn good actress to pull that off. It's real stuff. That's what I'm hearing. It makes me believe even more that she found my mother dead. And she doesn't know anything else. This is what she found.
I think listening to the 911 call, it shows true emotions on her part as far as what she felt for her grandmother. This is genuine. It's shocking to her.
I was at the cemetery, my mother's gravesite. There was 3 or 4 guys working on some trees around there. The phone call came in, and Frankie LaRaza says, Fred, found guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And I screamed so loud. The 4 guys that were cutting down trees in there came over to the truck, thought something happened. It was a scream of letting loose my anger, my frustration.
I yelled out, yes! Let him rot. That was pretty horrible, but to be talking about another human being like that, but he deserves it.
I can say I put that on the same level as having the birth of another child. It was so, it was the biggest relief. A lot of people would say that it doesn't bring her back. But I think it was maybe a little bit more for me than just justice. Not only closure, but it's kind of like I just want to look at them in the face and like, I told you I had nothing to do with it. Justice for me.
We went to the beach, and I thought I made it clear to her that I believed her. I seen a girl filled with hurt, that people were thinking that she had anything to do with this. I seen her eyes, and I believe it, but she was hurt. And she told me she wants an apology from everybody. She had nothing to do with this. That's all she's asking for.
So did you apologize to her at that time?
I did, yeah.
What
I just said I'm sorry, and we let it go. And I'm not sure anymore this is a good idea, hanging on to this. This is where my mother lived. This is where it started, and now it's ended. But it's not really ended, has it? Maybe that's why I'm keeping it there, because it's still not over. Technically, it's over, but it's not over. It's a nightmare that's going to last forever.
What I've tried telling Fred is there is no evidence whatsoever to indicate that Angie had anything to do with this. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Benny Hall killed Olga Parlante. And I do know that Angelina had nothing to do with her murder. It's not gonna get you anywhere by just, being angry at her and still thinking that she's somehow involved when I know that she's not involved. Same thing with Nick. There was never any evidence to support an arrest on him or any of his family. So I would hope that Fred Parlante has come into Jesus' moment and gets his relationship going back with Angie.
Something's screwed up. There's still a lot of questions not answered.
Fred was convinced that that was her car that night until about 2 days ago when I spoke with him and I told him, I explained it to him. I says, I never thought that was Angie's car coming to that night. I used that as a ploy when I was questioning her, telling her, yeah, that was her car, to see what her response was. He just basically said, oh, I didn't know that.
Anything that could make you change your mind?
Nothing. Not a single thing.
Unless Benny Hall admits to another person and completely makes me look like a fool.
Amen.
And they both admit to it, whoever it was. Then I probably will apologize to Angie. Never talk to her again, but I will apologize to her.
As of right now, my thoughts are my thoughts.
Is there anything you would want to say to her if you saw her? She'll probably watch the show.
I would never want to talk to her again. Not the way my feelings are, not after what she did to me. My feelings for Angie is hatred. That's all I can say about that.
To me, he's more angry about something else.
About smacking you and going to jail.
I believe that he's angry with me for putting him in jail.
Do you think your mom would want you to hold this much anger towards Angie?
No, because it's killing me, it's ruining me. But, like I said, she would want me to take care of business. But it's eating me up, it's ruining me. Little by little, it's taking a toll on me.
Is there anything you want to say now to Angie?
I love you. You know that.
I love you too, Uncle Michael. But it still doesn't change anything.
I don't know that I'll ever be able to change that feeling. That feeling of betrayal.
That's one thing that I struggle with, is forgiving. Family is everything.
She would have wanted us to stay together.
If you could say goodbye to her, what would you say to her? Thank you. Thank you for being an amazing mom. Thank you for spoiling me. And I love you so much.
Last night, I thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't have done this. And then today, I'm glad I did. I'm glad that I am able to express how I feel and let people know that what I went through. And not just for me, but there's plenty of people out there who have been accused of something they didn't do, even after 22 years.
Never give up hope.
There is light at the end of the tunnel.